My husband left me for a younger woman, so I gave his inheritance to someone he hates. You know that moment when someone breaks your heart and suddenly, everything becomes clear? Not just the pain but the realization that they never truly deserved your love in the first place. That was me. After 22 years of marriage, my husband sat me down and told me he was leaving. For someone younger. Fresher, he said. Someone who saw him. But here's what he didn't see coming. He left behind more than just a broken home. He left behind an inheritance. Money from his father meant for us. And instead of keeping it or giving it back, I made a decision. I gave it all to the one person he hated most. His brother. The same brother he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. But this story isn't about revenge. It's about something deeper, something real. It's about finding your voice when you've been silenced. About choosing kindness when cruelty seems easier. So if you're here, stay with me. Because what happened next might just surprise you. And if you've ever had to rebuild from heartbreak, I'd love to hear your story too. Because behind every broken promise is a truth waiting to be told. Part 1. The Comfortable Lie. Hi, I'm Emily. And for a long time I truly believed I was living the dream. Not the glamorous, whirlwind, movie script kind of dream, but the kind you quietly build over years. Solid marriage. 2 wonderful kids. A cozy home where we had movie nights on Fridays and pancakes on Sundays. The kind of life that feels steady, dependable. We even had matching coffee mugs. His said king, mine said queen. Looking back now, I wonder if I held on too tightly to that version of us. Because slowly, almost without me noticing, things began to shift. He started coming home later. First it was work. Then it was just errands. And then he didn't need to explain at all. His phone lived in his pocket, now face down. He wore cologne I didn't recognize, the kind I never bought him. He went to the gym more. He started complimenting my friends' outfits but hadn't noticed my haircut in months. And when our anniversary rolled around he forgot. I chalked it up to stress. Work. Life. I told myself this happens in long marriages. Don't overthink it. But inside I started to feel like I was disappearing. Like I was a background character in the life I helped build. Have you ever felt that? Like you're present, but no one really sees you anymore. Then came the moment I'll never forget. We were sitting on the couch after dinner. The kids were upstairs. I thought it was going to be just another normal night. He turned to me and said, calmly, too calmly, "Emily, I need to tell you something." And then it came. I'm leaving. Not we need to talk. Not I think we're struggling. Just I'm leaving. And the final blow. There's someone else. She's younger. She understands me. 17 years younger. In that moment my entire world cracked open. You know how people say their heart dropped? Mine didn't drop, it froze. Time slowed. And all I could think was, how long has he been planning this? I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I sat there, stunned, nodding like I understood, because even in that moment, part of me still didn't want to make a scene. And that's when I realized something even deeper. I had been living in a comfortable lie. We weren't happy. We were just surviving. And maybe I was afraid to see it. Maybe it was easier to pretend we were still that couple with matching mugs than face the truth. We were strangers sleeping side by side. I want to ask you, have you ever ignored the signs, hoping things would just go back to the way they were? Did you ever feel like if you just loved harder, everything would fix itself? So, please tell me in the comments. Because I know I'm not the only one who's tried to hold together something already broken. But stay with me, because what came after that moment wasn't just heartbreak. It was a discovery. A hidden detail in our past that would flip everything I thought I knew. And yes, it starts with an envelope. Let's keep going. Part 2. Picking up the pieces. You know what no one really tells you about heartbreak? It's not just the moment they leave. It's the hundreds of tiny moments that follow the quiet ones where everything feels unfamiliar. The first morning I woke up alone in our bed. The left side still cold, the coffee machine silent. My body moved like muscle memory. I poured 2 cups before remembering I only needed one. I sat on the couch with both. And cried. I won't pretend I was graceful about it. I cried over cold takeout containers. I left the laundry in the machine until it smelled musty. I avoided mirrors. I told myself maybe if I changed my hair or wore lipstick again, he might come back. But he didn't. No text, no check-ins, not even for the kids. And every day that passed, a little more of the numbness gave way to something else. Not strength, not yet, but awareness. I started seeing things for what they were. Our house, once warm and full, now felt like a museum of someone else's life. And in one of those long afternoons, while cleaning out the back closet, I found it. Box. It was small, dusty, tucked behind some old boots and winter scarves. The kind of box you forget exists until it's placed in your hands. Inside were old photos Daniel as a boy, his high school yearbook, even a dried flower from our wedding day. My breath caught for a moment, but then I saw the envelope. It was slightly yellowed, creased at the edges. His father's handwriting. I knew it well. Daniel and Emily, it said. Just those words. I sat down on the floor and opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from his late father written before he passed. Talked about the importance of family, of building something together, about love and loyalty, about setting something aside for the future. The inheritance wasn't massive, but it was enough to matter. And it was meant for us, for our life, for the children, for the future Daniel and I had promised each other when we said, I do. And there I was sitting alone, holding the words of a man who believed in a version of us that no longer existed. And suddenly, something shifted in me. I realized I didn't have to follow the plan we made anymore. That money, it didn't have to be a painful reminder. Could be something else. Beginning. A decision that was mine and mine alone. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. Because here's the truth. Healing doesn't always start with forgiveness. Sometimes it starts with ownership. With claiming your right to rewrite the story. And in that moment, I started to think, what if this money could go to someone who still believes in the kind of love his father wrote about? What if I could pass it forward, not as a reaction but as a gift? Have you ever been in that place? That strange space between grief and empowerment, where your heart is still raw, but you finally feel strong enough to do something with it. If you've ever had to rebuild from scratch, I want to hear your story too. Tell me in the comments. Let's support each other. We're stronger than we think. And if you're still with me, thank you. Because what I decided to do next, it wasn't just unexpected. It was something my husband never saw coming. Let me tell you about the one person he hated most and why I chose him. Let's keep going. Part 3. The one he hated most. Have you ever been surprised by who shows up for you when your world falls apart? Not the people you expected. Not the ones you thought would. But someone you never imagined would become your safe place. For me, that person was Mark. Let me tell you about him. Mark is Daniel's younger brother. Or I should say was, because as far as Daniel was concerned, Mark stopped being family the day he came out. I still remember the day it happened. Mark had sat us down, voice shaking, hands clenched tightly together, and told us his truth. That he was gay. That he had been hiding it for years. That he just wanted to live as himself. And Daniel, he stood up. Didn't say a word. Just walked out. And never spoke to him again. 15 years. I tried once to get them to talk. Suggested we invite Mark to a holiday dinner. Daniel refused. Said Mark had made his choice. Said he couldn't respect a man who lied to the family. But here's the twist. The man Daniel hated most, the one he pushed out of his life with anger and silence, was the first one to show up for me when Daniel walked away. I hadn't spoken to Mark in years. We'd exchanged the occasional message, but the distance Daniel put between them naturally extended to me. Still, the day Daniel left, Mark knocked on my door. He didn't come to gloat. He didn't come to say, I told you so. He brought tea. He brought tissues. He brought gentleness. And when I opened the door with swollen eyes and a heart that felt like it had collapsed inside my chest, he simply said, I'm here, and stayed. We sat in the kitchen for hours. No judgment. No questions I wasn't ready to answer. Just presence. He listened when I talked. He nodded when I didn't know what to say. And when I finally broke down and showed him the letter from Daniel's father, the one about the inheritance, he just looked at me with his heartbreaking kindness and said, "Whatever you choose to do with it, Emily, make sure it brings you peace." That night, after he left, I sat at the dining table alone. I stared at the envelope, and I thought about what legacy really means. Was it just money? Was it about bloodline? Was it about doing what was expected? Or could it be about honoring the people who actually show up for you? That's when it became clear. That money didn't belong to Daniel anymore. Not morally. Not spiritually. He walked away from the life it was meant to support. But Mark was the only one who stood with me in the wreckage, without asking for anything. So I made the decision. I gave it all to Mark. No big announcement. No dramatic delivery. Just a simple letter, folded with the same care Daniel's father had once used. Inside I wrote, "Thank you for seeing me when I didn't even see myself. You deserve this more than anyone." And I meant it. Every word. Some people said I was crazy, that I let emotions cloud my judgment. But I disagree. I think I finally listened to the voice I had ignored for far too long, my own. Have you ever made a decision from your heart that others didn't understand? Did it bring you peace, even if it raised eyebrows? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know your story. And if you're still watching, thank you. Because the next chapter, Daniel finds out. And his reaction, well, I didn't expect that either. Stay with me. Gets real. Part 4. The message I sent without words. You know what's funny? Sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is the one you never say out loud. I didn't text him. I didn't call. I didn't even tell anyone beyond the few people who mattered. But word got around. And one day, right in the middle of folding laundry, with a podcast playing in the background, my phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. I hadn't seen it in months. Picked it up. Not to speak, just to listen. And I'll never forget the first thing he said. "You gave it to him, didn't you?" No hello. No apology. Just accusation, heavy and bitter. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence was its own kind of truth. He went on, angry, trying to twist the story into betrayal. Said I was trying to humiliate him. Said I disrespected his father's wishes. And still I said nothing. Because deep down he already knew. He knew that inheritance was meant to honor something lasting, something rooted in love and commitment. And he knew, more than anyone, that he was the one who walked away from all of it. So no, this wasn't revenge. I don't have time for revenge. This was something else entirely. This was justice. Quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And maybe, more importantly, this was for me. Because for the first time in years, I made a choice that wasn't about keeping the peace or preserving the illusion of a happy home. It wasn't about what people would say. It wasn't even about proving a point. It was about healing. It was about seeing someone who had been pushed down, silenced, erased, and lifting him up instead. Mark didn't ask for that money. He didn't expect it. But when I gave it to him, he cried. Not because of the money, but because he finally felt seen, respected, included. And that moment meant more to me than all the empty anniversaries Daniel and I shared. People spend so much time trying to keep others from leaving. But sometimes, letting someone go is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. So here's what I learned. When someone chooses to walk out of your life, let them. But when you have the chance to lift someone who's always been standing quietly in the background, do it. That's real love. The kind that doesn't have to be loud or public or perfect. Just true. What about you? Have you ever found peace in a decision that others didn't understand? Have you ever stayed silent when you could have shouted and realized silence held more power than words ever could? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story has stayed with you, even just a little, please like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to my family tragedy for more stories like this. But don't go just yet, because what happened after that call, that was the moment I truly stepped into the life I never thought I'd be brave enough to build. Let's finish this story together. Life rarely gives us perfect endings. More often, it hands us the pieces and waits to see what we'll build with them. This was my choice, my voice, and finally my peace. What about you? What would your heart have told you to do in my place? I truly love to hear your story. Share it with me in the comments. And if this touched you in any way, please like this video and subscribe to my family tragedy. We tell real, heartfelt stories here every day because healing begins when we know we're not alone. Thank you for being here.